Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Um, just playing them out around with my puzzle box. Lament. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, um, sorry if you follow the channel, you know that I've mentioned having one. This is a cheap version; it's hollow. But we're not going to talk about Hellraiser and its various iterations. Actually, to this week, we're going to talk about The Last of Us. More generally, zombies and fungi, but we're definitely going to talk about The Last of Us. So today on Monster Monday, yes, we are going to go into it. Classic zombie tropes and what we can use. Maybe there's some things in The Last of Us and zombies and fungus that we can add into our role playing games, and we're going to talk about it all week. Why? Because sometimes things come to mind, and this is a seat of the pants studios, so there are plenty of times where we forget or something comes to mind or we get creative in the minute the show ends and we're able to then extend that through the rest of the week. So thank you very much for being part of the show. um, and usually I start the show out with some kind of thesis, some kind of statement or what have you, and then we start to talk about it then. Now today's statement is that during the airing of The Last of Us, the HBO television series, not the video game, there were a lot of people who were like, cordyceps infected individuals aren't zombies, and I'm here to tell you that that's not true. I believe people are conflating origin of zombies versus the execution of zombies. So the minute you get human beings that are mindless, they're zombies. It doesn't matter whether it's by disease or drugs or radiation or fungus, infested by insects in their brains or mind controlled. They're all zombies. But origin is a very cool thing we can use for on our Monster Monday, because origin is a very I'll say it's a shorthand to allow us who are creators, who are world builders, who want to have really cool tabletop role playing game experiences to very shortly and quickly tell our players and those who are, if you want to go even further, you want to produce this and release it out into the world, to tell your players what your monsters are like. And so there's a huge difference between yeah. Oh, thanks. The End King's like, careful, might open. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I open this thing up. It's hollow. It's hollow plastic. There's like a brownish maroon color with gold around it. I know there are wood crafters and other people that make these things real, and they're pretty awesome. But I can't afford one of those, and I'm a little older. Maybe I'll go back if they ever really reboot the Hellraiser series in a great way. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I hope I don't solve it. Become a chain demon or something, and all the pain and pleasures. Hell's no, no, thank you. All right, so in The Last of Us, we understand that through a series of events, a vi wow, about to say virus, and that's not exactly what I meant to say. Through a series of events, a real life fungus, sometimes known as like the zombie ant fungus, and is able to mutate itself and affect human beings. And we get ourselves in The Last of Us a number of different types of zombies, which is really cool. Now, for people who liked one version of The Last of Us, the HBO show, and the video game of the other one, I would say to you this: when it comes to the video game experience, is much different. It tries to build tension and action, and gives itself a bit of a linear storyline with some pain points for you to decide what to do and to make it interesting, because it is because of the medium. For the HBO show, they didn't show a whole lot of the action and the gunfighting and um, beating fungicide zombies down and around, because The show wasn't about that. Again, when we have zombie apocalypse shows, it's more or less about the people and the human beings in a world where modern society doesn't exist any longer. Usually tells the story of how thin humanity, society, and humanity can be, and that it's only held together by the belief of everyone. The minute people stop believing in a civilized society, you get this idea that they regress back to animalism, and this show is exactly it. As a matter of fact, to be more accurate, The Last of Us is about human connection, sometimes down to just two individuals. And throughout the television show, they express that if two people, if you and a loved one, or maybe not a loved one, were the last two people on Earth, and there's nothing out there. It's just you and them in a small place, maybe safe, maybe a little dangerous. What would life be for you and this other person? How would you live that life? And they explored the ups and the especially the downs of what people would do for love, and that the world be damned, for the people in your life that you love, you would slaughter the world to protect them. And that's exactly, spoiler alert, that's exactly what happens in a video game series that's already been out for quite a while, in a television series. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. There could be a way to solve the entire thing if you were to just sacrifice the person, the individual that you love the most in this world. And most parents and or friends and family of people that love each other, it's like, hell no, I'm not going to see my relative killed for a possibility that everybody else gets to live. So, getting back to monsters and zombies and such, one of the great things that role playing games allow us to do, even without mechanical rules, is to really embrace the strangeness and foibles and mannerisms and things that you can imbue into zombies. And also, listen, sometimes zombies go hand in hand with minions. And there are a number of games that have minion rules, including Dungeons and Dragons. And the minion rule, I think, is something that is underserved. And even Dungeons and Dragons that had it, I believe it was in fourth edition, I think it deserves a comeback. So zombies, and especially when you start adding up the number of them, tend to become minionized. The minion rule, and this is very generalized. Basically, the minion rule is player characters get to become badasses by being able to take out a number of enemies in one fell swoop. Usually, you see this in movies and television where you get one character who takes out a bunch of nameless dudes. I remember listening to a documentary about Hong Kong action and how the stunt monkeys, they call themselves. I think this was with a Jackie Chan documentary, and they call themselves the stunt monkeys. And they said it was funny because during the off season, the stunt people would grow their facial hair and their hair very long, and throughout the movie, because the stunt people had to represent like 30, 50, 200, extras that would get taken out, they would slowly start to shave themselves down so that they didn't look like the other person that got killed. And by the end of the movie, they all have baldies and stuff. And I thought it's pretty silly. Deadman says, "Oh, those puzzle boxes are not that expensive. Found one like that on for $12. Check Discord. Really, really? I mean, an actual puzzle box, not just a hollow. I think this came with a Halloween set, and they had a number of things. I was going to play the uh, I don't know. His face is stretched open and his skin stretched open, and he carries a chain, a hooked chain or something. And my wife was going to play Pinhead. They all had funky names. They're $12. Okay, I mean, I'll take a look at that. The End King in 4E, I used modified minion rules for vampire spawn. I totally agree that they'd be great for zombies as well. Yeah, zombies, robots, thugs, and any the entire John Wick series was filled with minions, right? As a perfect example. And in a lot of Hong Kong action, martial arts action, you have a bunch of guys that are running that they run around in the outside because you can only fight one person at a time, logistically in the film it. So what they would do is they have the extras running around in the outside. But listen, in game wise, what's the game that I Hong Kong Action Theater is a role playing game. HCAT it was called, and Feng Shui is a not about moving furniture and geomancing, but it's the actual tabletop role playing game has a minion rule used in that as well. Now in 4E, I believe they said basically you can pick just about any monster and give it one hit point. So if the PC hits it and you get one hit point, but you don't even have to go that far. All you need to do is just the if a player character can hit it, and they're down, right? If they roll to hit it, they're down. And in Feng Shui, that like they had a gradient. So like if you rolled 3 over or 5 over what you needed for the difficulty, they were out for the count. And you could describe any kind of way you want to destroy them, which is the whole point of minions, right? Is to be a badass. The the other method to give them a hit point, we've seen people try to do fuzzy math, but essentially, if you can do 12 points of damage in a tabletop role playing game, you get to take out uh, 12 individuals. Now, you can modify the minion rule by giving maybe powerful enemies maybe like 5 hit points instead. Some players try to abuse the rule because you would have blow through. Blow through is where you hit an enemy for 12 points of damage. They've got 5 hit points. So now you've got an additional 7 that blows through one enemy, and you get to apply that to the very next enemy. That's also used very useful in a horde rule where you just have a pool of hit points, like 200 hit points. I'm using numbers like Dungeons and Dragons. You got a pool of 200 hit points, and maybe every 10 removes an enemy. So if someone does 50 points of damage, they take out 5 enemies. Or if they do 55 points of damage, they take out 5 enemies. Another one is injured, and then there's a bunch left. But basically, it's very simple. You want to do this very quick. You want this as quick and as simple as possible. And so I would just have the person roll the damage and the roll the hit at the exact same time. With digital things online, you could just click, 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 and that way, even like rogues and wizards and things like that can start to take out a ton of enemies all at the same time. And it's not just taking them out. It's like you got to embrace the creativity of of describing how you do it. If it's more grounded and more like The Last of Us, it's going to be bloody and brutal. If you're talking more cinematic, it's bouncing off the walls and throwing things or shooting things that bounce and reflect and blast through people's chests and then uppercuts and all that kind of stuff. Oh, really? That man says that Temu has boxes like that for under $20 a piece. Ooh, that's friggin' cheap. Okay, all right, okay. Let me see. You know what? Normally I wouldn't go there. I'm gonna go there. All right. So, um, ooh, Sweetums. Yeah. So one of the things that is excellent in The Last of Us that I think we can steal for our own monster version of Monster Monday is the fact that during the show, we got a chance to check out different types of zombies. Yeah, there it is. That very first one. There it is. The very first one. Yeah, 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 yeah. And other types of boxes. I've seen these. Magnetic folding puzzle boxes. Kind of sweet. Kind of sweet. I got a couple of these wooden boxes, wooden puzzles. Not more or less boxes, but puzzles and stuff. Wow, sweetums. Let's see if it'll show up. Is it going to drain on my system? Drain the system. There it goes. Sweet. So, the cool thing about the origin of the cordyceps zombies, the fungal zombies um, in The Last of Us, is the fact that we can use real science and the knowledge we have about nature to inform the behavior of these cordyceps zombies. In the video game, it was more spore-like, whereas in the television show, it was more fungus, mushroom-like, and that's why you got the strange shapes where you got the the heads that would have the mushrooms growing out of their faces, and then their heads with the clickers would be able to make the sounds and such. I'm going to bring up like the clickers and bloaters and such in The Last of Us, and kind of mix them a little bit with the zombies from the Train to Busan. So one of the really great things, hey, Death Angel, what's going on there? Um, one of the great things about them is that the concept of the mushrooms growing out of the people's bodies is that, well, eventually they will go blind. And in the movie The Train to Busan, we have zombies as well. And in that movie, well, the as there's a train, there's zombies, there's people, human beings on the train. Hilarity ensues. One of the things in that movie as well is that when the train went through tunnels and there was no light, the zombies would basically stop being. Um, I don't know. You don't want to call in sick too much. We're talking about fungal infections here and other things there, Vince. But hey, good to see you. Also, you came to mind the other day about I don't know. I was just reminiscing about your role playing game and stuff, and it made me think of that. Cool, sweet, sweet, sweet. We're just talking about zombies today, but yeah, puzzle boxes. They're pretty cool to do, especially if you're really good woodworker or very creative. Now, in again in Train to Busan, they had zombies that they weren't necessarily blind, but if they didn't see you, they didn't react to you. So in that instance, you again, when it comes to making zombies your own in your own world through their senses, their actions and reactions, the classic debate of, do you like shamblers, like the slow walkers, the slow shamblers, or do you like the ones that like really like to book it, right? Um, that's sweet there, Vince. Do you like the ones that basically run and tackle? Are they tacklers and grapplers? Are they slow walkers and shamblers? Do Are they biters? There's an old classic movie where they could speak and they just kept saying brains. They wanted to eat brains, even though that's technically not a thing any longer. It was a trope at one point. I believe there was one girl had a boyfriend that became a zombie, and he's like, I want your brains, and she's like, okay, I guess so, and it was just very dumb. It was pretty much a comedy with zombies created from like nuclear radioactive waste or something like that. Again, talking about the origins, zombie origins can come from a number of things, whether it's uh, mind control lasers, or a disease that is closer to rabies than anything, or um, implants in people's brains, or this talk about zombies and Vince, anything from insects digging into people's ears or going up their nose or whatever. Um, yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, Vince says, I think slow zombies are more like an environmental hazard than an enemy, like a horde of animals. Exactly, right? And and King says, was it Return of the Dead that introduced the brain thing? Right. And you can absolutely flavor your zombies any way you want to. Classically, we understand, we accept that becoming mindless is a fear like fear of fire, fear of falling, fear of public speaking, fear of embarrassment. Zombies kind of represent a base fear that we have of seeing people in society, but you don't see anything behind their eyes, that they are mindless. And some would say that we see that today with people staring down at their phones. There was an artist that had some viral artwork about zombies and people staring at their phones and such. But it could be something that, again, maybe in a modern context, maybe people do see something and they see it on their phones and they become zombified or whatever. You could have any kind of origins in fantasy. Classic fantasy, it has been through curses or the raising of the dead through a ritual or things like that. And it may not spread through like biting or getting something infected, but you can absolutely do that. Yeah, like Vince brings up his role playing game. In my game, Visitors of the Infection, you are playing an alien body snatcher and you can control dead bodies like a puppeteer. I call it pulling the strings. And again, how your zombies exist in your world, is it the case of the spirits of the dead inhabiting dead bodies, or even human, living people, and taking their souls or something like that? There's any number of ways you can do it. And the more insidious the way it happens, the more fearful it can be, especially if they are, if it's spread like by disease or by blood, or I don't know, they eject out the insect that's inside of the zombie's brain to try to crawl inside of the mouth of the enemy or something like that. You can always come up with those. And the great thing about that is you can make them as mindless as you want, and then the player characters can get creative when it comes to their interactions. In most role-playing games, they just have simple stats, but understanding how they act and react to the stimuli can really tell your players how much fun and danger there is. For example, if a player is on the other side of a 10-foot pit, classic 10-foot pit, spikes at the bottom. But if a player is on the other side of a 10-foot pit and they're screaming and yelling to say, "Come and get me," will the zombies just walk into the pit, or over the cliff, or into the fire, or into the dangerous hazard that the PC has set in front of them? That's up to you. And if they truly are mindless, that the player characters use that as an advantage, I would give that to them. I would say, yeah, of course, if you make enough noise and they don't realize that they're about to walk into a flowing lava or across a wall of fire that the wizard put up, or into a spiked pit or something. But then again, you could even keep going through that. What if enough zombies fall into a pit where the zombies behind them can walk over it? We've seen in World War Z where you get enough zombies that they don't work together. On one hand, like they will step on and crush and pull down other zombies, because each zombie is in and of itself is trying to get at their prey, at the living people. But then if you have enough of them, they can overturn cars and climb tall walls. And if you dump them over a boat, they can walk on the bottom of the ocean or a river or something and come out to the other side. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh man, you guys. Okay, so here we go. Our co-hosts say, the End King sins. I've always been partial to slow shamblers. Okay. That's how Romero did it. Yep. And that's the point. They're the threat that should be perfectly manageable. And I believe in Romero's, they weren't dead. They were like drugged out zombies. They were the version. It was like a classic horror movies were warnings for young people to behave. And which is why a lot of the horror movies had like the punk kids, the ones having premarital sex, the ones having drugs, the ones that were violent, the ones that were destructive. They all died first. It was a warning. As time is going on, completely innocent people were dying in these movies, but in the beginning, which is why the classic uh, virgin lived, because they were the good person. They were the nerd. They were the nice one, the one that wanted to follow the rules. Uh, but yeah, in those movies, it was the shamblers. And again, like The Walking Dead, in The Walking Dead, it's less about, like Vince was mentioning, it's more of an environmental hazard. Hey, how do we get food? How do we travel? How do we build a community? Well, we have to worry about the environment outside, and that environment just happens to be made up of hordes of individuals. Um, but it's more about human beings and the horrors that human beings represent. Mike says, let's see. Vince says in Half Life, the zombies work similarly, where an alien replaces or envelops the head. Yeah, heck, in DC Comics, there's there's a villain called Starro. It's just a big giant starfish and releases these little tiny starfish that suck onto the person's face with a big eyeball in the middle, and they become zombies. Right. So you can make the origins of your zombies anything you want, and be as creative as you want to be. And King says, "Yeah, but the people in power screw things up, and it gets out of control." Of course yeah, of course they try to mind control us with our cell phones and stuff. Yeah. Vince says, "I personally like the slapstick aspect of zombies." Okay, some games have you playing the zombie and being able to throw your body parts and control them individually. Throw enough zombies, they can fill a pit. Yep. Chthonic Musings mentions that. Yeah, Vince. We forget that, like, maybe a zombie is just the first stage of a monster, because once the flesh falls off, maybe it becomes a skeleton, which you could do like a two-stage monster thing. Also, we forget, and a lot of times this is not detailed in a lot of role-playing games, if you chop a zombie in half, is it dead? Because normally the idea is you have to strike the brain. That's the classic get rid of the zombie, strike the brain or destroy the body completely. But if you cut off the arm, if you cut off the legs, can it still scramble? If you trap zombies behind a cage, or like in a dungeon or something, can they reach through the bars or reach down from the rafters or reach up from the ground from sewers or a bridge or something like that? Becomes even, if you kill enough zombies, do they pile up, and the pile of bodies themselves becomes a hazard unto itself? Like, do they, can they still bite? Can they still grapple? If they can't, is it just a place for you? Did you kill 8 zombies and make yourself half cover? That kind of stuff. And then, of course, going back to Vince's comment here, I mean, can zombies use their own body parts and use them as bludgeoning objects? Can zombies use their own, or can a player character use a zombie's organs and strangle somebody with it, or use some long and short intestine as a lasso or whatever? You know what I mean? You could get pretty nasty. Even in the first seasons of The Walking Dead, the characters camouflaged themselves in the organs of the Walking Dead, and then shambled like them to hide amongst them. And then in the later seasons, we had like a gang of people that were using like flesh and covering themselves in the flesh of zombies and walking uh, with the undead and such. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, Dead Man brings up Z Nation. I didn't get into Z Nation, although I know some people that did. But anyway, Z Nation had meth zombies that ran around real fast. Yeah, and when you talk about fast zombies, like, are we talking dash action zombies? Or are they just not shambling? And if they are dash actioning, like, are these the type that literally run and run off of rooftops and fall and break their legs, falling 3 stories to the ground? Or are these like tackling zombies, like when they get within about 15 feet of you? I mean, they're doing full on, football, rugby, tackle to the ground pummeling. Are they rending zombies? Like, do these zombies, can they destroy physical objects by ripping doors open and scrambling through the ground and ripping apart chain link fences and digging through wood, that kind of stuff? Do these zombies stop and eat? We have the classic zombie stopping and eating the internal organs of their prey, but what what is their default behavior? Is it just is it a cordyceps zombie that wants to spread its fungus into the orifices of their victims, or is this more of a zombie where they want to devour? And is the devouring a like a rage? Okay, 28 days later, we had rage zombies, basically rabies styled zombies that just wanted to pummel and destroy things, screaming in pain and anger till they're spitting up blood and their throat went raw. And they were just running after people, but it's more of a pummeling type zombie, or is this a devour, sit back and devour kind of zombie? So that's up to you. And you can have different ones. In The Last of Us, we had different stages of zombies. So we had our runners, and the cool thing about the cordyceps zombies, the fungal zombies, was that when they were not disturbed, they would go into like a fungal dormant state. They would kind of like lay down on top of each other, and much like our real science that we know about how fungi have like tendrils, they almost communicate with each other through sometimes even through miles and miles of these fibrous things that uh, causing causing a disturbance in one area could wake up zombies from a distant area, and they will become runners and run towards you. And I think that really can build a lot of tension as well. Like, what if you have like psychic zombies, and if one zombie sees you, that image is put into the heads of all the other zombies within the region, and then they know what you look like, and then they start coming after you. Or it could be sound. Um, uh, in the concept of The Last of Us, the clickers were very, you could almost consider them to be bat-like. They couldn't see any longer, but they would make clicking noises to get that refraction and reflection of sound. And it was being quiet to try to avoid them because the clickers could hear and it would reflect off of solid objects, and maybe they could sense you that way. But sound could be a thing. And going back to Train to Busan, it could be blindness as well. If they don't see you, maybe they stop being violent. They just go back into a dormant state. Maybe that's a great way to throw a room into darkness, throw tapestries over their heads, spray paint in the eyes. Maybe that's a thing. If they're dead, maybe they can't see and hear like they normally could, and it's more vibrations or something like that. Or if you have a necromantic wizard, if the necromantic wizard gives commands, maybe that wizard has a ritual or a magic item or an artifact or something like that that gives them that power. Heck, they could even have borrowed the staff of Orcus to control the undead temporarily. Both temporarily holding the artifact and temporarily holding the undead hordes back. And using them to control. The End King says it might be interesting if the zombies were varied. Imagine in a group of 100, one or two could open doors and use their brains. There was a zombie movie where some of the zombies had more intelligence. They were able to use weapons, equipment. They could uh, think a little bit more animalistically. Like, for example, instead of walking across a river of lava, they could look to the left and right and look for something to knock over, like I don't know, a flat monolith or a bridge instead, right? They had enough intelligence to do that. And if you had an intelligent leader, maybe that is a thing, or maybe some of them are pretty brilliant. And you could even identify this physically by their color, by their shape, like in The Last of Us with the growing of the fungus. You could see their body shapes like the bloaters. And there are lots of side effects that zombies can have as well for our Monster Monday. Um do do your zombies start to rot? Like a newly minted zombie might be very human looking, to the point of causing sanity rolls and things because maybe they look like your freshly dead um, mobile loved ones. It's always that's always been my argument for the player character that's like, I want to play a necromancer. I don't know why people are upset with me being a necromancer. And I'm going, mechanically, no, but society-wise, people don't want you running around with their grandparents or their dead kids as your playthings because you don't want to walk into a pit trap, right? There's a societal nastiness to raising the dead, and we have for the most part in around the world, for most cultures, there are antithetical behaviors about people who mess with and play with the dead, that the dead should stay dead and the living should stay living. There are some exceptions to it, but not a lot. So, but the idea that there's different types of rotting and things like in 28 days or 28 weeks later and some other like The Walking Dead, do the undead begin to quickly decompose? And if that's the case, do they look different? Like could you wait out the decomposition long enough to for it not to be very dangerous? In World War Z, when you went into the colder regions, the zombies couldn't move as fast. So is that a thing? What if you set a zombie on fire? So is it a difference between fire being able to kill them easily, or do they just walk around on fire and just aren't? They're burning, but they're also very mobile. They're ambulatory while they start to burn and such. You can have irradiated zombies that are spreading radiation. What if they're diseased? The classic diseased zombie that can bite you and infect you, or maybe they are because of the decomposition, maybe they smell horrid, and with organs, blackened organs spilling out of them. Again, maybe there's some kind of sanity check, or the smell just drives people crazy. It could also drive away or drive in predators, like circling ravens and vultures overhead. Maybe they start to call other undead creatures or things, like, for example, in Dungeons and Dragons, you have ghouls. Why wouldn't ghouls try to tackle zombies to eat zombies that are undead? Yeah, maybe it's easier just to eat a non-moving dead body if you were a ghoul, but maybe the zombies become ghoulish, having some of the aspects of what a ghoul would be. There's also other things. What if they become infested or infected with something else? So zombies don't have to spread the zombie virus, but they could spread all kinds of other diseases um, that the dead can spread. Maybe they're infected with, covered with flies or maggots or centipedes and things like that, or infested with snakes or something like that, living inside of the dead bodies and whatnot. There's all kinds of ways you can stack on other kinds of horrors. The, Zombies that have been submerged in water can become very bloated. Bloaters if you hit them, they could explode and spray out all kinds of horrid things as well, getting into the mouths and eyes of our player characters, right? So there's all kinds of dangers you can add to them, um, as well as the fact that there are. I'm going to get back to you guys. There, our co-hosts here who helped with the show. There's the idea of grappling, and the the their numbers can be so high that it's very difficult for the PCs to move, which is how, like, if you're super strong, that's great, but even a super strong individual or lethal individual that can strike down a lot of these minions, even they could become overrun, which is usually what ends up happening, where you get the hoarding together, where they start to collect or spiral or whatever the case may be in zombie hordes, which is another behavior. Maybe the PCs can you can rank up the tension, because instead of the zombies just being individual, maybe they start to hoard together, and you get, let's come up with a number, 10 or more. When they start to hoard together, maybe that becomes its own mechanical horror, because it starts blocking hallways and stairwells and those pit traps. When you stack a number of those zombies into a pit, you could easily walk across the top or something. Maybe that becomes a thing as well. Vince says, yeah, alpha zombies or horde controllers, they could be the origin of my ant zombie idea I wrote about earlier. Yep, absolutely. I mean, well, we've seen this with vampires, but you can do this with anything, where you have the um zero, the progenitor, the controller, the one that has the initial individual that was the one that is affected, that's affecting something else. I mean, if you have a ghoulish individual who still has their mind but can spread zombieism to other innocent people, that may be a thing as well. And a great way to ramp up the tension, you gotta the unsung hero of being a GM or narrator, storyteller, or whatever, is having tension in your back pocket. Anything to get your players to move and make the hard choices. Like, we need to make a choice now, and it might not be the best choice, but we got to make a choice. And being able to do that for forcing your players and putting the decision making in their hands. Let's say the PCs are in a castle and there's a giant moat, and they go, well, at least we're safe. We've got big walls and a giant moat. But if the undead keep piling into the moat, to allow the undead to go across the moat to then pile up against the walls of the castle to then overflow into the castle, maybe the PCs might want to get a move on, right? Um, Says Vince says in The Walking Dead, I think they became docile when you removed their lower jaw, so they could not eat anymore. The katana lady used them as mules. Yes, and she also cut off their arms. I was about to get into cutting off the legs and then move into the cutting off the arms, but yes, it was they became very docile, and they also warned away other zombies. It was like a warding effect. In The Walking Dead, they had some kind of warding effect. So maybe that's a thing. Also, we saw where encampments had zombies chained up around the outer perimeter, so you couldn't enter into their perimeters. They were like, it's the idea of like chaining up monstrous beasts or fantastical beasts to prevent entry into a place. They absolutely had that. A few had them chained up, others had them just on spikes, but they could still reach out to people. Yeah, Vince says necromancers can be made more friendly. Yeah, think about something like Coco. Different cultural aspects being brought up. Maybe you treat your undead as real good and ask for their opinion, or yeah, or they choose to follow you before you brought them back. Maybe they want to support you. Grandpa would not let you go alone adventuring. Yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, there's a way to do it. I mean, how cool would it be to stumble upon a community that has a symbiotic or even a friendly relationship with the undead? I could imagine a holy order that has committed themselves to defending a region even unto death, and then even when they die, they are mummified in their care to ensure that they don't smell bad and their bodies don't rot, but they still stand on the walls and defeat enemies and things like that. Oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I stopped watching a while too. Yeah, Michonne. Yep, Michonne played by Denai Guerrera. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's and listen, I tuned out of Walking Dead myself after they didn't kill Negan, and I was just like, yeah, whatever. Hey, this is my zombie friend. He produces honey. Yeah, yeah. There's the idea of using the undead to plow fields and make food and be force multipliers. Yeah, uh, yeah. I don't know how willingly I would want to eat the food, even though you could claim that you know they can't really infect crops and things like that. But yeah. Like N King brings up the point, if we're talking about hordes and actually fighting them, then we really need to figure out how lethal getting bit is exactly. So if you want to ramp down the lethality, then the biting is just harm. It's like being grappled. It's like being tried, your flesh trying to be ripped. But if being bit means that you get infected and you're being tackled by a horde, it doesn't matter how badass your barbarian is. If you're wearing a loincloth or speedo, leather speedo, yeah, no. Which also, listen, we've seen enough zombie slash vampire skeleton type of post-apocalyptic type movies. Why is it people don't wrap things around their necks and their arms, forearms, that are hardened to keep, like, I'd find PVC pipe and duct tape or something. Like, why don't people do that? It's almost as if the writers make it seem like the people in those TV shows and movies have never seen those things. Like, it's like zombie movies don't exist in zombie movies, which is really weird. But yeah, Dead Man says the D&D had the zombie lord, a zombie that gained superhuman level intelligence and several additional hit dice. Yeah, and we can go different levels with that, right? Like, you could have um a bloated, stronger, bestial one zombie. You could have, I'm going to call it an amalgam. with which has more arms and or legs or heads, like an amalgam of body parts that happen to collect together. You could have them. I mean, there's any number of ideas where maybe they do just have their intelligence, and then you start to go above that, right? You start to get into the undead knight area. You get into the proto lich ish type of thing as well. Um, and of course, how horrible it is to be a zombie. If you have your mind, are you trying to? Are you an undead soul escaping hell to try to pull other people back into hell with you, or are you? Has a promise been made to your undead soul to leave hell to bring somebody down to replace you so that you can come back? Um, in the movie Prophecy, um we had Gabriel. I think it was Gabriel. Anyway, they were angels and fallen angels, and this one could bring people back from the dead, and every time he brought back people from the dead, they start crying. They're like, oh, I was in the good place, why'd you bring me back? It's painful to come back here. And he's just like, oh, you're being pitiful, stop. You need your help. I don't know how to drive a car, I'm an angel. I need you. Right. Vince says, would be kind of neat to have zombies as material components for more powerful spells. Yeah. So you need a couple of zombies to even cast your spells. Take cover. Here comes my bone spike ball. Yeah. Pretty sick, but kind of cool. And wait a minute. What a great way to numerically and mechanically measure the power of an enemy when the PCs realize, oh, so this I'm pulling this out of my ass. The enemy needs to use as many zombies as the spell level for your Dungeons and Dragons. So if he needs to cast the 5th level spell, he's got to destroy 5 of his own zombies, which means that the zombie hordes are being whittled down. But we also know if we defeat the zombies first, he can't cast the spells. I mean, that's a great problem solving puzzle. Like, yep, yeah, Vince's armor would be so good against. Well, it depends. Will it slow you down? Yeah, armor would be so good against zombies. Exactly. Uh, it- Now, exhaustion is a thing. Remember, zombies don't have to sleep. So even if they're shamblers and they're slow walkers, they can still outpace most people because most people have to eat and sleep and rest, and they get hurt and they twist ankles, and you got to have a twisted ankle, right? People get distracted because you've got dumb actors having to act out dumb roles. But I mean, there's all those kind of things. We worry about the environment: wind, cold, rain, forest fires, earthquakes, and all. Zombies aren't going to stop. They're just going to keep on walking forward towards their goal, unless they shamble in place, like they fall asleep in place. Yeah, Vince says, imagine having full plate against those suckers. In in the book World War Z, uh, which is not like the movie, they talk about having to go back to medieval warfare to fight zombies. That modern weaponry is pretty much ineffective against zombies because it to kill a human being involves destroying their organs. And there is a psychological and pain factor when you shoot a human being or use like frag grenades. But frag grenades don't do anything to zombies. And bullets that pass through bodies don't do much against zombies either, which was brought up in World War Z, that they had to use um, uh, explosives that blew through the air to destroy in a wide swath rather than through fragmentation. Yep. Deadman says D&D 3.0, 3.5 had almost 50 different zombie and zombie-like enemies. Yeah, yeah. We don't. I wonder why we do that. Where you have all these perfectly good examples, and then you get rid of them and you narrow it down to like one or two. I think in Dungeons and Dragons, I think numerically they've only in a basic book it was like a zombie. They had like a Minotaur zombie. There's also the Draco Lich, which is an undead dragon, but there's nothing really in between. And none of the environmental zombies, right? Like a zombie horde or um, dead grasping hands, which I wrote for Onyx Pants Publishing, where you just have a number of grasping hands in a location that becomes a hazard they're more of a hazard. Like for example, let's say you're walking down um, classic dungeon with gates that are locked, but there's undead inside, and they're reaching their hands out of the gates in like the prison or the jail or whatever, or in the dungeon, and the PCs need to walk down a narrow path. Otherwise, if they get pushed to the left or right, their skin will get rended. They'll be grappled. They'll have their items ripped from them. They will have their skin pulled off or whatever. I think that as a puzzle, as a obstacle, as a hazard, is far more scary than just fighting zombies on a flat plane and just bashing their heads in. N King says in the Marvel Zombies comic, they actually had their minds and personalities. Yep, but the hungrier they got, they would lose their morality until they got their next fix. Yeah, doesn't mean you can't role play them. Also, if your undead are being controlled, it doesn't necessarily, just because they're mindless doesn't mean they don't have a purpose. So, what if their purpose is to kidnap the PCs and bring them back to their leader? What if their purpose is to much like animated statues and things of that nature? Maybe their purpose is only to ward off the PCs, but not go after the PCs. Or it could just be that they go after the weak, right? It's not about running. It's not about, what is it? You don't have to be the fastest. You just need to be faster than everybody, than the least slowest person, right? So maybe there is this happened in The Walking Dead, and this happens in other zombie-fied television and movies, where someone takes out an ally, they break their leg or they shoot them, and they leave them behind because they know the zombies are going to stop and eat. So even monsters that devour other things, and we're not just talking about zombies, right? Even monsters that devour other things, the idea that a PC could control them by having them stop and devour something in and of itself solves a problem, and often isn't placed within the role playing section of this style of monster, but using that as our calling card to say, you know what, if the PCs, for every innocent that the PCs decide to drop behind them, the 6 zombies will stop and eat, right? So if they're being attacked by 36 zombies and they realize this, they might, get some sociopathic player characters. They might go, well, you know what, they really can't keep up. We're going to have to stop. We're going to have to drop off grandma and the 2 kids. you know. Yeah, Vince says that true. That would be a really neat boss fight. Do you attack the caster or decimate the horde so he could get weakened first? Right. Which one do you do? I would leave that up to the players. If the players figure that out, I would just go, "It's out of my hands. That's up to you." Because everybody, this is the reason why solo monsters always get canned, right? The solo monster always gets aimed at unless there's an alternative to the win condition, and that might be such a thing, getting the zombies away from the caster, because the caster is using their life force or whatever to annihilate the countryside and the PCs. Yep. Yep. Chthonic Musing says zombies could also be vehicles for delivering other hazards such as rot grubs, but not just rot grubs. You could, what could go inside of a shambling dead body, right? Rot grubs, insects, snakes, those vultures that are circling overhead waiting for the dead to fall. It could be a vector for the Dungeon Master's Guide, and other things have other diseases, not just zombie diseases, but they can spread other types of infection. Heck, just old poison, or maybe they spit out some kind of acidic. The stomach bursts and it sprays acid or something, right? Like there's all kinds of ways that could be a delivery service. Heck, every zombie could be a delivery service for a skeleton if you pull the skin off, right? Um, yeah, there was something with that with Deadpool. I'm not really a fan of the meta Deadpool kills the Marvel universe kind of thing. It's kind of dumb, honestly. Yeah, N King says, I mean, maybe Marvel really milked that series. Yeah, it became popular, so you gotta squeeze every dollar out of that kind of stuff. It's why so many villains end up getting their own Marvel series and DC series because people like the bad guys. Vince says, or zombies could be biological mechs for very small creatures. Pretty scary, but yes, humans that are mechs for like small people is kind of. I like that idea. I had a friend that made a human mech. That was he was a human, but he was really an alien species. That there were small alien species that lived inside of a humanoid robot, and the crew of the ship was starting to have relationships with people and stuff, and the crew had to they were getting into it. Was really silly. It was dumb. It was a fun idea. It was very fun. Yeah, being in an intimate situation and the crew having to uh little insect-sized crew escaping off the bedside table to explore the room. Oh, it was funny. Vince says, create a zombie RPG and you get new abilities by devouring the brains and hearts of stronger enemies. Mega Man style. Ooh. Or maybe they devour the brains to get their memories. It could be like a very temporary artificial way to get someone's soul back as well. Um, Lots of things. And zombies themselves have been used as it your story doesn't need to be zombie focused, but they could be used as a mechanism for other people. So once you get past the zombie horde apocalypse, right? As if this is something easy to get by, 6 months to a year passes, and now enemies and the population in your world, maybe they're using zombies like chained around a community's city state walls, or being held in wagons that are like chained up and they release them out into the public or something, or there's pits around a community that people could fall into and be ravaged by the undead or something like that. The the I'm walking around with zombies chained, and I'm leading them like animals or something. Yeah, it could be very much like that. And if you're not going classic mindless shamblers, they could be those zombies could be hunters. They could have some intelligence to them. Yep, zombies are the new slaves. Yeah, 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 yeah. The, it, um, it could be payment. Could you imagine a crime syndicate of sorts, very arcane, that if you can't pay a debt, they're like, you can't pay a debt in life, you're paying it in death, which would be pretty crazy as well. Yeah. Uh, and the End King says, killing the caster could be a mistake. Now nothing's controlling that horde. Yes. Another problem solving thing. Maybe that's the issue. The necromancer is definitely controlling using their power and influence to control the zombies, but maybe they're the controlling factor. So now the PCs have to navigate in the world. Okay, so how do we stop this person but put down the horde, and do you do this under this person's nose, you know ha, plowing the plowing the fields with small bits of brain dangling in front of them. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like a carrot and stick. Yep, yep. Let's see if we can get some oops, we're going to continue here. Let's get some pictures up here just before we get out of here. I know you can hear the clickety clack. Sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to have to share this one. Um, but yeah, I'm heading over to ArtStation. Let's see what ArtStation has. I wish I could get rid of the that huge part up top, but I can't. Yes, I already said I was going to continue as. Bunch of bloaters and stuff.
Sure, but first you'll have to unlock your device.
Now, I didn't call you. That was my phone. Normally I have it on silent, but I didn't think I would need to do that. Zombie. Zombie. And like I said before, are literally zombies are a symptom of a thing. Yeah, it reminds us of Planescape Torment. Yep, 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 yep. Absolutely. Anyway, guys, we've gotten to the end here. I want to thank you so much for just being part of the show. That hour went by pretty quick. But yeah, um, rethink using zombies. I mean, are they a little bit boring? Sure, but I think there's are great ways to build the tension when it comes to using zombies. I mean, in terms of using their numbers to create a thing. For example, sure, you can lock a door and there's only two or three behind the door, but when there's 15, 20, 50 of them, will they be able to, knock down that door? Probably. So you can build tension through their numbers. You can build tension through having contact with them because they can be a vector for spreading disease, spreading fungus, spreading animals, any kind of infestation. Depending on how you have your zombies, it could be spreading that. Is it spreading through some kind of is it puppet animation? Is it bringing back the souls of the dead? Are they infested with insects inside of their brains that might be trying to crawl out of their mouths to get into the PCs? Are they irradiated? Is there some kind of radiation or acid or damage? Are they on fire? Uh, can they self emulate? Emulate, emulate, whatever. You get the point. Catch on fire. Do they explode and spray something foul if you slice open a bloater or something like that? Are they not down for the count if you don't crush them in their skulls? Maybe their arms and mouths can still bite and they can still scramble with their arms even if their legs are taken out. Do they call other zombies? So what? You cut their arms off and you take out the jaw, but maybe they are a collective sort that when one finds an enemy, they all find them. What about some limitations? Are they blind and just move by hearing? Are they deaf and just move by sight? Are they drawn to the smell of blood, or are they just drawn to life forces? Can they just smell the living? Can you hide amongst them if you hide under a bunch of dead bodies or cover yourself in the rancid blood and things? Are there you can see I'm summarizing. Are Do they have a horrid? Can they cause psychological harm through their horridness? Either because the PCs recognize people that they know and how difficult it can be to put down someone that they know and love. Um, uh, are there NPCs that will get involved in it that have a hard time putting down the ones they love, making it difficult for the PCs to navigate around it, saying like, "Hey, listen, we got to put them down. I could care less that it's your grandparents, right?" Um, Also, what kind of stages of decay have they gone through, and how much independence do the undead really have in your world, or the your particular brand of zombies? Do they still? I'm looking at a something over here. Like, is this creepy guy more mindless, and is this individual characters of the thinning veil like do they have more independence and intelligence, and do they gain that through the brains that they eat, if they even eat brains? Are they more pummeling and rending kind of zombies, or are they after a particular thing? Are they after people's souls, their flesh, their organs, their brains? Are they under the control of something to be brought back to a powerful necromancer or something like that? So, yeah. What do you want to do? Hey, yeah, exact. There you go. Hey, Vince says, was nice talking to you guys. Ending King says, yeah, this has been a blast. Yeah, we're going to continue. Tuesday is Level Up Advanced 5th Edition Tuesday. So we kind of take a break. We've been going through the two character classes a day. And then if we had enough time, going through something else on Tuesdays. So Tuesday is Level Up Advanced 5th Edition Tuesday. So it's A5E Tuesday. Wednesday, we do World Building Wednesday. We still do. We're going to build a world with zombies. What if we had a world with yeah, we're going to take lots of examples and try to build something unique for ourselves. Thursday, Third Pillar Thursday, we still do Third Pillar of Exploration. Thursdays, we still do that, and then we have Future Fridays. So, still going back to that, we're going to borrow, copy, steal from The Last of Us as we move on. So, and I didn't get a chance to talk about this because it had some impact in pop culture and stuff, and we'll get into talking maybe a lot more about fungi because we didn't really go into funguses uh in this episode, But yeah. So anyway, we're going to leave this off with what you guys have to say. Our co-host says, Vince says, I think because they are so established, it is really easy to make them interesting with a simple twist. Yeah, such as jumping zombies, ant zombies, elemental zombies, etc. Yes, yes. There's nothing to say that we have to stick. There's no rule that says we have to stick with our biological dead then being biologically risen, except for there's an internal uh, horror about the undead just in general in pop culture. But like you said, elemental zombies, people like, could you imagine the skeletal frame inside of like ice or stone or flames or hell, even like black smoky clouds or lit on fire or something like that? And why don't we see other zombified creatures? Zombie orcs, zombie unicorns, zombie wyverns, um, all that kind of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Yes, I know there's a zombie T-Rex that could spit out other zombies, right? Like, why don't we see that? Yeah. Oh, thanks, Death Angels. Oh, but RPG with DBJ, you're a really fun guy. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And the Ant King says, I love using them in a larger horror context. Zombies walking around means something is happening in this town. Yeah, especially depending on how the people react, right? If they're not scared, maybe you should be. Deadman says, zombies animated by rats that swarm out when the zombie is killed and the swarm tries to find a new host. Yeah, yeah, why not? Why the hell not? Yeah. Um, and we've seen zombies as minions for other more powerful creatures, right? So all the stuff we take, we can then add that to a zombie lord, a lich lord, a wizard, um, a religious faction, anything like that. Yep, yep. Vince's Visitors has a whole faction dedicate based on plants and fungi. It was really fun writing those. Yeah, if you don't know, Vince wrote a whole role playing game about playing in infested individuals, and I love that body snatcher idea. I love it. I love it so much. So anyway, guys, thank you very much. I'm glad I can be a fun guy for you, all of you. We're going to continue this probably on Wednesday. We'll hit on this a little bit for Level Up A5E tomorrow, but that's more or less for those fans. My channel's getting a lot of attention from that. Hell, I've got the most views every time I talk about put OSR or Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition in the title. It gets like double or triple the views. So, not saying I'm going to change the channel to that, but it is pretty funny. I almost want to let you guys see what my analytics are and understand why it is that people do what they do within the content creation industry and why that is. Yeah. Ha! Mark Dasude says, zombie loxodon that smashes you with its torn off trunk. So it's carrying around its trunk? Oh man. Mm-mm-mm. Well, anyway, guys, I gotta get out of here. Gotta head off to work, do all kinds of crazy stuff. You guys have a great one as well. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Thank you very much. And by the way, guys, have a great day. If you've gone this long, I don't ask for a call to action too often. Um, Hell, like, share, subscribe, do the doodly do thing, and let people know about the show. So thank you very much. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see thee tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in RPG with DBJ. Peace.